The Department of Education's Most Essential Learning Competencies. The Most Essential Learning Competencies, or MELCs, were provided by the Department of Education as the primary reference for all schools. Schools' division offices and regional offices in determining and implementing learning delivery approaches that are suited to the local context and diversity of learners while adapting to the challenges posed by COVID-19. Schools are hereby instructed to refer to the MELCs in creating learning activity sheets, self-learning modules, and other instructional materials. Moreover, schools are enjoined to adhere to the content of the MELCs and refrain from creating a new list of learning competencies for different learning areas. The MELCs objective follows: determining and implementing learning delivery approaches that are suited to the local context and diversity of learners, while adapting to the challenges posed by COVID-19. The current global health crisis poses a profound impact on the basic education system, as approximately 87% of the world's student population, or about 1.5 billion learners, have been affected by school closures. This is according to UNESCO 2020. While interim distance and remote learning programs are being put in place in many locations, the most marginalized, poverty-stricken, and vulnerable children are expected to be put at a disadvantage. In the Philippines, ensuring the welfare of more than 27 million learners in basic education alone requires indomitable commitment amidst this crisis. However, as UNESCO reiterates its stand, education cannot wait. If learning stops, we will lose human capital. Meeting the needs of the most vulnerable populations in these times is essential to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 4 of UNESCO 2017. As primer, heads of state, government leaders, UN high-level representatives and civil society met in 2015 at the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly and adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This ambitious agenda, of the people, by the people, and for the people, was designed with the active involvement of UNESCO. Education plays a central theme throughout the 2030 Agenda, which includes a standalone education goal and education-related targets within 7 other of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Goal 4 aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. The goal consists of 10 targets to guide countries along a transformative path to a sustainable education agenda. To learn more, you can scan the QR code, which will link you to the quick guide on UNESCO's Sustainable Development Goal 4. The department echoes UNESCO's belief that educational quality, access, and system strengthening cannot be compromised in times of crisis, and that doing the opposite will negatively affect human capital. Thus, the Department of Education affirms its commitment to sustaining the delivery of quality, accessible, relevant and liberating Philippine basic education services anchored on the Sulong Educalidad framework. The Department of Education will continue to strive to produce holistic Filipino learners with 21st century skills. Consequently, the Bureau of Curriculum Development ensures that learning standards are relevant and flexible to address the complex, disruptive, volatile, and ambiguous impact of COVID-19 in the Philippines, particularly in the basic education sector. Working on the said premise, the department hereby releases the most essential learning competencies to be used nationwide by field implementers for school year 2020 to 2021 only. The department emphasizes that the review of the K-12 curriculum remains ongoing, and the experience with MELCs for this school year will be used to inform and enrich the curriculum review. The release of the MELCs is not just a response to addressing the challenges of the current pandemic, but is also part of the department's long-term response to the call of sustainable development. Goal 4: to develop resilient education systems, most especially during emergencies. Thus, the MELCs can be used under certain circumstances as a mechanism to ensure education continuity through the curriculum dimension. The MELCs will enable the department to focus instruction to the most essential and indispensable competencies that our learners must acquire, as we anticipate challenges in learning delivery. It will also lighten the burden of converting classroom-oriented learning resources into learning resources adapted to distance learning. Releasing the most essential learning competencies does not diminish the standards set by the full K-12 curriculum guides. Rather, these serve as one of the guides for teachers as they address the instructional needs of learners while ensuring that curriculum standards are maintained and achieved. The department, through the Bureau of Curriculum Development, Curriculum Standards Development Division, in collaboration with the Assessment Curriculum and Technology Research Center, started working on the identification of essential learning competencies in the middle of 2019 as part of its ongoing review of the intended curriculum. Bureau specialists, academic experts, and field implementers worked to reach a consensus regarding the criteria to be used in determining these competencies. Initiated by Secretary Leonor Magtolis Briones, the K-12 curriculum review is not just meant to fulfill one of the provisions of Republic Act 10533 to review the curriculum, but is also part of her commitment to ensure quality, relevant and liberating education for all. After the 4 phases of curriculum review are completed, the Secretary will convene the Curriculum Consultative Committee to present the findings as provided for in Section 6 of the same Republic Act. The review focuses on articulation within and across learning areas to identify gaps, issues, and concerns across learning areas and grade levels. Specifically, the review covers the following: mapping of the essential and desirable learning competencies within the curriculum, identification of prerequisite knowledge and skills needed to prepare students for essential learning competencies, and analysis of the interconnectedness of prerequisite knowledge and skills among the learning competencies for each subject area. The essential learning competencies are defined as what the students need, considered indispensable, in the teaching-learning process to building skills to equip learners for subsequent grade levels and subsequently, for lifelong learning. On the other hand, desirable learning competencies were defined as what may enhance education but may not be necessary in building foundational skills. Learning competency is essential if 1. It is aligned with national and/or local standards or frameworks, for example, scientifically literate Filipinos. 2. It connects the content to higher concepts across content areas. 3. It is applicable to real-life situations. 4. If students leave school, it would still be important for them to have this competency above many others. 5. It would not be expected for most students to learn this in settings other than through formal education. These characteristics are based on a US-developed competency validation rubric, which is intended to assure that learning competencies can reach the highest level of quality and comparability across schools. This is from the New Hampshire Department of Education, 2012. Although adaptations were made for relevance in the Philippine context. With the challenges on learning delivery posed by COVID-19, the Bureau of Curriculum Development accelerated the identification of the essential learning competencies, and streamlined these further into the Most Essential Learning Competencies or MELCs. In determining the criteria for the selection of the Most Essential Learning Competencies, the descriptor endurance was considered to be the primary determining factor. A learning competency is considered enduring if it remains with learners long after a test or unit of study is completed, or if it is useful beyond a single test or unit of study. Examples of such learning competencies include research skills, reading comprehension, writing, map reading, and hypothesis testing, which are essential in many professions and in everyday life. Part of the process was deciding whether a learning competency is to be retained, merged, dropped, or rephrased. As a general rule, a learning competency was retained if it satisfies the endurance criterion, which greatly contributes to lifelong learning and is a prerequisite skill to the next grade level. 2 or more learning competencies are merged or clustered into one comprehensive learning competency if they have the same objective or learning intention. A significant number of learning competencies were removed or dropped due to the following reasons. 1. They are too specific, and the articulation is similar to that of a learning objective. 2. They are deemed appropriate to be introduced in an earlier quarter or grade level or moved to a later quarter or grade level. 3. They are recurring. 4. They are subsumed in another learning competency. Finally, certain competencies were rephrased to be more concise. The content and performance standards are directly lifted from the curriculum guides. This is to emphasize that the identification of MELCs is anchored on the prescribed standards and not a departure from the standards-based basic education curriculum. Thus, teachers are encouraged to refer to the 2016 curriculum guides in unpacking the MELCs. All learning areas will still be taken up by the learners in all grade levels, but with the streamlined competencies. This is to ensure that the learning outcomes are still achieved even in this pandemic. It is noted that, in principle, the time allocated per subject on a daily basis did not change. This means that schools need to consider this aspect in employing various delivery schemes. The Department of Education, through the Office of the Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction, shall gather relevant feedback on a regular basis from internal units and external partners and stakeholders in the implementation of these guidelines in order to further enhance the ongoing review of the K-12 curriculum. To know more, you may download the Most Essential Learning Competencies and the guidelines on the use of the MELCs through scanning the QR codes in your screens now. These can also be downloaded through the Department of Education Commons and Learning Resources Management and Development System portal. If you like this video, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button, click the thumbs up, and the notification bell.